I'll make one thing clear. I'm a huge fan of John Woo. He is the greatest action-filled director which this world has ever seen, and I really hope he continues to produce work as consistently great as what he has produced thus far. Naturally, it should then come as no surprise that I absolutely loved the first Max Payne. However, there was always a part of the first Max Payne which I found quite disappointing, that being the story. The first Max Payne was a generic and cliched revenge story, with an admittedly well-produced atmosphere. My hopes going into Max Payne 2 were based on the general consensus. The general consensus told me that Max Payne 2 fixes all of those issues, and contains an excellent story. Consequently, I was incredibly excited to experience the game, and finally see the concept of Max Payne fully realized by Remedy. On to the review.
Payne! You're not going anywhere. What happened out there? You did it. Internal affairs was breathing down my neck. Did you do it? You killed her.
No, I can't.
Bullshit! What the hell?
They were after me. It was my fault. You can't run from your past. You'll end up running in circles. Until you fall back down to the same hole you were trying to escape from. Only the hole's grown deeper.
Up first is the level design. The levels in Max Payne 2 are varied and fun throughout. All of them are set in unique locations which excellently complement the atmosphere of the game and the style of gameplay. Levels are incredibly linear, which works very well for the gameplay. Some sections are much more open and are far more difficult as a result. However, the difficulty in these areas provides a welcome change and forces you to master the game's mechanics more than the regular, more linear areas. You'll also play as Mona for a few levels, although she does not play especially different to Max. She has different animations, but that's pretty much it. Disappointing, but I suppose it's best to let sleeping dogs lie and stay with Max's polished and refined gameplay. Level design gets a 3 out of 3 from me. Up next we have the controls. Having the right mouse click be delegated to bullet time rather than aiming will always feel awkward after having played so many modern shooters. However, within the context of this game, it makes perfect sense, as it is a very accessible button which you will be using a lot. Almost as much as you would if it was an aiming button, for instance. Instead, aiming is done by pressing E, though all of that can be changed. I'll give controls and responsiveness a 2 out of 2. On to the glitches and bugs. Generally, I never experienced anything game-breaking, although there were a few hiccups during my gameplay. The main one that comes to mind was during the mission when you are transporting a man, whose name I will not mention, inside a baseball bat boy costume. During this section, he got stuck in the building while I was out below. This happened every single time I did this section. Eventually, I solved it by simply pushing him a bit, though it took some effort to get this completed. This was a frustrating glitch, however, and it could easily have proven to be a softlock. Fortunately, I managed to solve it, and due to how polished the rest of the game was, I'll give glitches and bugs a 2 out of 3. Next, we have artificial intelligence. Aside from the aforementioned bug with the pathing, I did not find any particular issues with the AI. Generally, they run around to different places and stand still to shoot, which works very well for the gameplay. While certainly not advanced by any means, it gets the job done. Artificial intelligence will be receiving a 1 out of 2. Now we have the overall fun factor. Like the first, Max Payne 2 remains an immense joy to play. Its mechanics are some of the best and most well-implemented ones of any game, really. Many video games have similar slow motion mechanics, but none work as well as they do here. Moreover, while the first Max Payne had excellent gameplay for its time, the sequel refines it further to just the right extent. Now you can stay shooting after doing a shoot dodge by simply not releasing the trigger. This is a nice innovation, although I very rarely used it. A much more important mechanic is the improvement which have been made to bullet time. In bullet time, you now move much faster, and as you continue to kill enemies, you'll begin to move even faster. Consequently, bullet time feels truly awesome, and I felt very motivated to use it as much as I could. Similar to the first title, you can interact with lots of items within the environment, such as televisions and water dispensers. This interactivity helps the environments feel a lot more lived in, as well as simply encouraging replayability. You always feel as if there's more to explore and more details to find.
Criminal.
Yes, Mama.
I am so proud
Hey,
of you,
nice
Jack,
going,
my
Payne.
gracious
Good
son.
job.
You
There
will
was still
lift
summer,
our
you'd
name
be a
to
dead man
new
right about
glorious
now.
heights.
You better stop praying we won't get an
You are
Indian summer,
adored.
Payne.
Yes.
As mentioned, the game can get surprisingly difficult at times, during which good use of shoot dodging and bullet time becomes essential. There really is potential to master these mechanics in the game, particularly with the fact that you will actually see the bullets during slow motion. Consequently, there is a surprising amount of depth to the game's mechanics. Sure, mechanically they are very simple, however, the manner in which they are used has such a significant effect on the gameplay that there really is potential here for a game that one can sink many hours into. There's also a grand variety of weapons to use, similar to the first game. There are mainly short-range weapons, which is entirely reasonable, as that is what the game is focused on. There are some sections in which sniping is encouraged, and it works well, although all of the game's difficulty is removed at larger distances, and this is where the gameplay does become a bit mindless. However, above all else, the greatest and most important new gameplay feature is the physics. Max Payne 2 uses the Havoc physics engine, and it does wonders for the gameplay. Seeing people tumble around like something out of a cartoon makes the gameplay much more satisfying. The bullet cams returning from the first game are also made very enjoyable by this feature. Combining this with the much improved bullet time mechanic makes for a truly badass experience. Additionally, there are plenty of escort sections which are about as boring as you'd expect. As mentioned, they are also kind of broken, which does not exactly help the monotonous nature these sections tend to have. Thus, I'll say that Max Payne 2 is a game with exceptionally fun to use mechanics with a surprising amount of depth, although there are still some small errors which need polishing. I'll give Max Payne 2 an overall fun factor of 8 out of 10. Thus, the total score for gameplay is a 17 out of 20.
You don't need a lawyer, just tell us what you did.
Payne, you're done. Everything you say will be used against you.
What are you hiding? She's alive, isn't she?
People get near you, they die. You killed your family. You killed them all.
Confess.
Do I get my phone call?
You already got it.
Don't push your luck. Sit down. Put it down now.
Drop your weapon.
First and foremost, we have dialogue. Unsurprisingly, Max Payne 2 continues to have outstandingly well-written dialogue from Sam Lake. It is filled to the brim with clever metaphors that reflect the emotional state of the protagonist. The other characters of the game tend to speak far more normally, which actually serves to emphasize the conflict present between them and Max. Generally, the dialogue in this game is just as powerful and thought-provoking as that of the first entry. Thus, I give dialogue a very well-deserved 2 out of 2. Up next are the characters. Thanks to the immensely well-written dialogue, the characterization is profound throughout the game. This makes the emotional scenes, of which there are plenty, much more emotional. The game really helps you empathize with Max, not only because of the events of the first game, but also because of how incredibly well written he and his conflicts are, whether with himself or another antagonist. Needless to say, I'm giving characters a 2 out of 2. Onto the acting. James McCaffrey is an outstanding voice actor in this game. He is perfectly cast as the gruff and depressed Max, and really helps aid the emotion of the story and the characterization of the protagonist. The writing, powerful though it may be, would be nothing without McCaffrey's superb acting. Without a doubt in my mind, acting is a 1 out of 1. Onto the replayability. In my opinion, Max Payne 2 remains strong here as well. As always, there are several difficulties to play the game with. Interestingly, harder difficulties are actually unlocked upon playing the game on a lower one, which I found surprisingly annoying. It encourages replayability, sure, but I would like the option to tailor the game to my preferences when I first launch it. Aside from the difficulties, there is of course the New York Minute mode, which is essentially simply a speedrun version of the main game. I'll give replayability a 1 out of 2. Now we have the atmosphere and mood. I have never played a video game which has a more well-developed atmosphere than Max Payne's 1 and 2, as should be very evident from the footage you've seen. 3 out of 3. Lastly, we have plot quality. As mentioned, Sam Lake's writing is superb. Max Payne 2 strives far from the cliched action movie that the first title seemed to bring about. This title does a much better job of giving Max Payne the story he deserves. The game does a very good job of showing just how depressing Max's life has become since the death of his wife and child. Getting his revenge did not serve to alleviate any of the sadness which he received from the experience, hence the subtitle The Fall of Max Payne. Consequently, although there is certainly action in Max Payne 2, it feels a lot less bombastic than the original. There are no particularly impressive set pieces here, just standard locations in New York, leading to this game having an arguably even more well-constructed atmosphere than the original title. Doing this also helps put more focus on the story, because this game has much more focus on the plot than the first. For fear of spoilers, I won't give away much. However, there are many twists and turns throughout this plot, some of which are admittedly more surprising than others. All of them, however, are foreshadowed excellently, whether it be through details in the environment or the TV series which you can watch on televisions sprinkled throughout the game's levels. These shows have a plot which very much parallels the plot of the main game, thereby helping foreshadow some of the game's events. I heavily encourage you to take the time to watch these when you play the game, as it will help you realize just how well written this game is. The relationship between Max and Mona is also developed incredibly well. You can empathize with Max for falling for her, which causes you to become really invested in their relationship, something which is further done through the moments in which you play as Mona. My only real criticisms are that some of the twists are a bit predictable and do at times fall into the cliché territory. Don't get me wrong, however, this is an incredibly well-written game with a ton of attention to detail in the environment. I'll give the overall plot quality an 8 out of 10. Thus, the total score for the story is also 17 out of 20.
Do you know how much this stuff is worth? I tell you, fucking much. Nothing nerdy about it. I'm a collector. Hey, lots of tough guys are into this stuff. Frankie was into this stuff. He was a fucking tough guy. Hey, just wait till I sell my collection online. Just you wait. Nerd. Hey, let's see who's the nerd when I'm a millionaire.
Max Payne 2 currently cannot be bought on its own. Instead, it can only be bought in a bundle with the first game for €14.99. Alternatively, you could also get the trilogy for $54.96, which is clearly illogical since Max Payne 3 costs $19.99 on its own. Thus, I'll only consider the $14.99 price tag. Admittedly, I don't mind this pricing structure, as I would advise you to play Max Payne 1 before 2. The differences in the gameplay are not too significant, although the second is undoubtedly better. Additionally, while you could experience the story of 2 on its own, it makes a lot more sense after having played the first game. I would not call it a standalone adventure, although it can still be experienced that way. That being said, $14.99 for the 2 of them is a good deal. That puts each of them at $7.50, which is an excellent price for the amount of quality you are getting here. They are certainly old games, but that does not diminish their quality by any means. They are very much worth that $7.50 price tag. They're also frequently on discount at around 70%, at which point I might genuinely get mad at you if you don't purchase the game. The main story of Max Payne 2 should take you around 6 hours. Since it's undoubtedly worth a second playthrough, both because of the difficulties and because of the attention to detail, I'll say that the average gamer will have around 12 hours of playtime within the game. There is also a side mode which allows you to play some endless PvE gameplay in some of the locations from the main game, although it's not especially good and you should very much purchase the game for the story and that alone. In this mode, enemies just spawn repeatedly and surround you, making for a very difficult time as well as a frustrating one. Still, I suppose it's better than nothing. With all of that being said, considering the incredible quality of the titles we are getting, I think $14.99 is a very good price for these 2 titles. While Max Payne 2 could certainly benefit from additional or simply better side content compared to what's on offer, that does not change the fact that it is an excellent title and well worth the price of admission. I'm giving content and pricing a 7 out of 10. Overall, Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne, received a fantastic 41 out of 50 possible points, which is converted to a well-deserved A. Thank you all for watching, and have a good day.